Okay. Hello, everyone. Hi, I see some people in chat writing. That's good. Good morning. So, can you hear me well? If yes, just put a plus in a chat. So if everything is fine and you can hear me, amazing. Good, good. Good afternoon, everyone. It's also nice to know where you come from. So if you let me know what city you come from, that would be good. So you can also write it in a chat. Ah, Sebastopol, nice. Vladivostok, wow. Moscow, good. Wow, that's a good geography here. Hello, everyone. So it's probably for someone, it's already like good evening, something, right? Good afternoon, good evening, Shymkent. Well, I've been to Shymkent. Wow, St. Petersburg. Bad sound. You don't hear me, like, I can speak louder, I guess. Okay, sound is okay. If you do not hear me, maybe you can, I don't know, try to raise the volume because the sound should be okay. We've checked it, so it should be fine. Okay, so the chat is open. If everything, if something happens, you stop hearing me or seeing me, let me know. Okay. Freeze. So you don't see me? Okay. So how is it going? Can we start the sound, the picture? Okay, I guess for most people it's okay. If something is not, try maybe to leave the room and then get in back, or so it should be fine. Okay. Anyway, so the chat is open. I will be trying to follow, and if something goes wrong, let me know, okay? And then also in this room, there is a certain section for questions. It should be on the top. There is a top bar with questions. So it's not the chat, but separate one for questions. So I would appreciate if you write your questions there so we can collect them together in one place, okay? So you can also write them in the chat if you want, but that would be much more comfortable if we have them there. Okay, so let's start slowly. We're supposed to be here for an hour, about an hour, right? 60 minutes. So I think, yeah, more people are here. Let's start, and I will introduce myself first. So my name is Екатерина Редькина. And I'm a teacher trainer for Cambridge Assessment English. And I'm also a teacher at Lomonosov Moscow State University at the Faculty of Psychology. So a few words about my background. Initially, I'm a psychologist and my first education is psychology. I graduated from Moscow State Linguistic University, well, many years ago, let's just put it, many years ago. After that, I worked mostly as an English teacher. I've never worked as a psychologist. Never thought that that's my cup of tea. I like psychology, but more from the educational point of view. And so today our topic is going to be a mix of some psychological ideas and approaches and methodology, teaching methodology. So I'm going to tell you about some exam preparation and aspects of exam preparation and some psychological aspects mostly. So I hope you will take some, and you will bring with you back some useful ideas and tips. Okay, so what you will need a pen or a pencil or something you can write with, and a piece of paper, and we will need a piece of paper at the beginning. You will do something there, and then we'll leave it till the end of the talk, okay? So I will slowly start, so if you can find something to write on and then leave it aside, that would be good, okay? So and maybe when you hear the word psychology, you're imagining something like this. So this is classical image of, you know, that people have in mind when they hear the word psychology or psychologist. So there should be some men sitting in an armchair and someone lying on a couch, and this client or patient would be, you know, talking non-stop about their dreams or associations, and then psychologists should apparently be, you know, interpreting this. That's all good, but this is more psychoanalysis, and as you probably noticed, the person in the picture is Sigmund Freud. But I'm not going to talk about Sigmund Freud today, though maybe I would love to because I like the idea. But today we're going to talk about more down-to-earth things and more practical things, okay? So the topic is large, and I tried to fit in and put everything together. So what we will talk? We will talk about common stereotypes that many teachers from my experience have about learning and teaching, and about the influence of these stereotypes on the learning and teaching process. We'll talk about stress and stresses and fears in connection with stress, and of course about stress coping strategies, what you can do to, you know, deal with stress. Then we'll talk about mindsets and emotional intelligence a little bit, and finally I will share some, you know, techniques of mnemonics that I've been recently been using with my students and that they work very nicely. So that's our plan. I hope we will have time to do everything. So before we start with the main part, this is when you need your piece of paper, okay? So you can see 6 different words here. Color is irrelevant. You don't, well, don't look, it's just simple, you know, random colors here. So what I want you to do, I want you to take a piece of paper. It could be any, small, big, doesn't matter. And I want you to have it look like this. So you need 6 parts or 6, like, you know, boxes here. Then, well, let's imagine that you know all the words, you experienced teachers, of course. So what you need to do, and I'll give you a couple of minutes, you need to illustrate these words that you see on my slide. You should draw a quick, really quick picture to illustrate these words, okay? You do not, you cannot write any words, okay? So no words, there could be numbers, but no really words, only symbols or pictures or whatever, okay? So could you please do that? 6 small pictures to illustrate these words. So I give you about 2 minutes, 3 minutes to do that, and then we'll continue, okay? Please make sure that your words and your pictures follow the same, you know, order. So you have greenhouse effect, top left corner, then chop down trees in the middle, top, and so on, okay? So it will be just easier. If you feel it's difficult, because many students start thinking how it's difficult, I need more time, they start worrying about the, you know, drawing abilities. We are not checking your drawing abilities at all, so we don't need that. What we need is just, I'm trying to illustrate an exercise, and if you don't have time to do all 6, it's absolutely fine. 2 or 3 pictures at this stage would be enough. 6 is for you know, for the advanced artists and for the advanced learners. Okay, so if you can do 6, it's absolutely fine. If not, it's fine as well. Okay, 1 more minute. I hope you're doing good. It's a shame I cannot see you, but I hope everyone is doing good with the drawing and everything. Okay, so let's probably slowly finish at this point. Yeah, hello everyone. So once again, if you have only 1, 2, 3 pictures, it's all good. You will still get the idea, okay? If you are a quick drawer, you have 6, that's wonderful, okay? So I hope you've done this. So now take this piece of paper and just put it away, better like face down so you don't see it, and basically forget about it till I ask you to look at it again, okay? So just leave it till later. Now, something that was an exercise, and we'll get back to that later, so just forget about it, okay? So now let's get to this point which I wanted to start with. So let's talk about common stereotypes and biases that many teachers have. So all of these are, well, not helping us in the teaching process, and I hope that during the presentation you will understand why. So many teachers often say that intelligence is something fixed. Again, I'm talking now about stereotypes and biases. It means that this is something often unconscious, and you may not even realize you have these ideas. So, but you have these beliefs, and because of these beliefs, you do certain things. We tend to think that some students are clever, others are not. And I'm pretty sure we all have this. We tend to group students according to their intelligence. And because we think that unconsciously, again, we think that intelligence is something fixed, and it's not about development. It's like, okay, he's clever, he's not. We tend to be biased, and we tend to, you know, have some decisions depending on this. This is not good. Because intelligence is rather be viewed as something processual, something more as a process you develop, some skill maybe. So, okay, we're talking about stereotypes now. Another one which I've heard a lot is that memory is, again, some traits that people have, and you either have a good memory or a bad memory. And again, this is something unconscious that we often have. We think that, okay, that's inborn, and many students think that memory is something they already have. Maybe you as experienced teachers might be thinking differently, and you think, okay, memory can be developed. But students often think that memory is what they already have. Again, we probably need to deal with that somehow. Then many teachers still think that they need to find individual approach to every student. We try to, because we think, you know, that's our job, and we are good teachers. We want to cater for everyone's needs. First of all, that's not possible. Second, that's not what we need to do. We need to, well, of course, we need to think about our students, but very often our students need to be helping us to create this, and I'll be talking about this today. Uh, well, what also we often do, we often think that students have certain abilities, and we tend to sort of put, you know, this, we like make it equal in our mind, the student and his abilities. So we try to see a person as a set of abilities that he has. This guy is talented, this girl is pretty or something. And we tend to stereotype because stereotypes actually help to save our mental energy because we don't need to memorize lots of things. So we tend to group people according to what they can do or what they can't do. And again, this is certain stereotyping that is simplified. We don't see often the whole picture because of that. Very common stereotypes, again, that usually are unconscious. If someone fails, we unconsciously think they're stupid. This is very typical for Russian culture. European cultures would be different here, but with Russians, that happens a lot. Again, you might disagree and say, no, no, I don't think this way. That's wonderful, but this is like common ones. Then we are always under stress and we can do nothing about this. You know, it's like we are very stressed, and this is also a common stereotype that this is normal to be under stress. Stress is like a normal state of things. We're stressed, okay, we're in a big city, we need just to deal with that. Again, I would look at it from a different angle. The opposite of failure, like if failure is stupid, success means clever. If someone is successful, we initially think that this person is clever. Again, this is that's been proved that these are typical stereotypes. If you notice some of these in you, just have a mental, tick and note for you to think about this later. We often tend to think that students who misbehave are not exactly clever. And we think that they're misbehaving because they are not diligent enough, they don't want to study or something like this. So again, we link their intelligence and their abilities with their behavior, which is not exactly true. And students should be clever to learn well. So if they are doing well at school, they're clever. If they are not, they're not clever. Again, strong link that exists in our culture, very strong one. And again, it's not always like this. And again, what we often have as a stereotype and sort of a pressure on teachers' shoulders is that we think that we should motivate students and get students interested all the time. So we need to do our best to motivate them. It's our job. Again, I would question this a little bit. So hopefully I will mention all of this more or less, and we'll try to kind of unbias this, stereotypes and sort of look at them from different angle. Let's start with stress. So stress, if it's good or bad, if you ask me, there are two types of stress in psychology. Stress could be both good and bad. And one of the stereotypes is that actually we often associate stress with something bad. And people who say, I'm stressed out, I'm under stress, of course they mean that something is wrong. No one says, I'm under stress, meaning that they are happy. However, in psychology, there are two types of stress, and the one in the picture, the green one, the good one, this is called eustress, which is a good one, and you are stressed out, you have similar physiological reactions of your body, but the reason is very, very positive, like you're getting married, for example, or you've passed some terrible, difficult exam, or you are excited about moving to another country, something like this. Something big, but very exciting and, stressful in some way. So this is good stress. So sometimes our students can be stressed, like most of the time probably in our studies, we talk about negative stress, but don't forget that stress could be positive. And this one doesn't need to be dealt with, Positive stress is good. It helps us. It helps us in many different ways. We'll talk about this. Well, another point I want to mention is that stress is contagious. And this is super important. So if one of your students in class, especially, with young children who are not in good control of their emotional state yet, or maybe teenagers, often also not in good control, if you have this stress, students in the group tend to sort of pick it up from this person. The reason for that is very physiological. It's because if we have this so-called mirror neurons, this is when, well, these neurons work when we copy each other's emotional state. And it happens not only with stress, it happens with good, emotions as well. But stress, especially negative one, is very contagious. So if you have a student who is stressed out and, you know, maybe angry or, well, has certain behavioral reactions or bodily reactions, emotional reactions, these might be, you know, picked up by other students in the group. So better deal with this person as soon as possible, like help him in some way, we'll talk about it, because then you might be dealing with many, well, with stress in many people. How to measure stress? Well, there are certain more or less objective symptoms. For example, we often have, you know, we feel worried, we feel anxious. We often have insomnia. I'm not talking about kids now, I'm talking more about adults. We might have headaches. Headaches is also might be a symptom of stress. I don't know if you've noticed, like, how often you feel, I don't know, if you have headache when something bad happens, or you had I don't know, students fighting or students misbehaving in your class, and you have, after that, after the class, you have a headache. Yes, because you experienced emotional, you know, anxiety and maybe some stress reactions. So headache would be a very logical consequence. So our body reacts, and our body reacts very well, I should say. And very often the body reacts first, and then, you know, emotion comes, because um, you don't even realize, and you don't, it doesn't go to conscious level, your body reaction. Emotion does, but body can be reacting quicker. So for example, if you want to measure the frequency of these symptoms, you will figure out your stress level. You can do something similar with your um, you know, students if you wish. But what I think is more interesting is not the objective symptoms that people have, but rather the so-called perceived stress. Perceived stress would be something that we feel. So it's not just, you know, I have a headache, or I have, I don't know, I blush or I sweat. This is something that even visible. This is something that you feel, and this is, no one else can know unless you tell people. So this is so-called perceived stress scale. And sometimes this one is even more important. You cannot always see the external bodily, for example, reactions of your students. They do not necessarily openly show their aggression or their anxiety or their, you know, unhappiness with certain things. But very often they have this certain anxiety inside, and they um, have certain, you know, um, emotional state inside. So it's internal. Scales like this is for more for adults. They can help to measure stress. If we had more time, I would ask you to measure yourself. Um, you can just have a look at a couple of questions, like in the last month, how often have you been upset because of something that happened unexpectedly? So this is about how unexpected things make you stressed, how much you get stressed out. So then you measure it on your scale. And again, no one else can tell you about this, because we don't see this. This is very, very like personal. So you can, I don't know, take a picture of this slide or print screen it, and then have a better look later if you wish. It comes from online, and there are actually thousands of tests of stress online. The tricky thing is that when you start, you know, counting the score, actually, if you look here, right, you will see that if you put 4 on the previous slide, it should be counted as 0. So you sort of do the reverse thing, okay? This is the only maybe difficulty. But then when you count it, you can see how stressed you are according to these numbers. Again, this is just an example. You can use it, or find some other stress scales to measure yourself or your colleagues or your students. With teenagers, it works well. With university students, you can do that. Middle school children, well, you probably need to adjust questions to their, you know, age. As for young learners, you probably need to be more observant and you need to look at their behavior rather than ask them. They're not that reflective yet, okay? Okay, there was a question. Okay, so getting back to next slide. Talking about good or bad stress. Let's imagine there's 4 situations here. So the first one, when you're feeling tense and you feel anxiety while driving, for example, on a stormy day. Imagine the situation. Definitely you're stressed. Is it a good stress or a bad stress? Well, the sun here, it means that it's more of a good type of stress because it helps you to concentrate. It's quite short, the whole situation, but it makes you concentrate, follow the road. If you've ever, well, had experience driving, in bad weather, you know that you really become focused, right? Usually we turn off the radio, we turn off any other distracting things, we put them away. I don't know. We just try to focus well on what we're doing. This is a very good stress, and then adrenaline and the hormones that are released into blood, they help us to concentrate. So stress here is good. Second one, if we worry about the end of the year test, if we worry every day and it's more like a constant growing anxiety, of course nothing good about this. If we keep the idea of about the test in mind and we sort of have it in mind and follow it, then it's very good because it's very closely connected with motivation. Many students you know who think about exam in a more like relaxed way, yes, there is an exam, I need to get prepared. There is certain stress level, it's not high, so it's kind of low but long term. Then it works nicely too. So in the first one, it's strong but short term. In the second one, it's low but long term. Both these variants are good, right? Then, anxiety during the examination. Well, this is a bad one because the over like anxiety during the exam, it might serve, like in the first situation, it might serve you nicely, but in fact for students it's usually not being able to control the anxiety or stress, so it gets too, if it gets too intense, this is bad. So you need to teach your students how to deal with this sort of, I don't know, breathing techniques or some other mental sets before they get into exam. So they need to control that. Otherwise, this might be, the opposite result. Fear of making mistakes at work, any work. Again, if it's like, imagine every day you come to work to an office and you're stressed out because your boss isn't happy with whatever you're doing. Every lesson, the student comes to class and he's worried because he or she knows you're unhappy with their result and you'll be scolding them for something. Or so strong long-term stress is no good. So you see there should be balance. So if it's strong but short term, it might be nice. If it's low and sort of long term, is also could be useful. So we need to remember about this. Okay. Um, what else I have to say? So if we talk about stresses and reasons for stress, like typical triggers of stress, what I've heard from many students so far, some negative sets and negative beliefs and thoughts. Students who are saying, I'm stupid, or this is too difficult, or this is too easy. This is also could lead to stress when they figure out that it's not that easy. It's not important. This could be a symptom of a stress, so not getting it too seriously, something like this. Many students are afraid of errors, and in our culture we are very intolerant to errors and mistakes. If we talk about Cambridge exams, there is a very high tolerance to mistakes actually. And for example, for young learners, YLE exam, right? And I know many of you are preparing for YLE. Students our students' areas are not that important actually, because we are focusing on communicative achievement. However, our students, children as well, very early, they learn to be afraid of mistakes because we tend to focus on that. When they give in a writing, we focus on mistakes immediately rather than, encouraging them and saying, oh, that's a good job and all this, positive feedback. Um, Fear of failing and its consequences. That's more about state exams and end of school exams, when they know that the exam is so important that it influences their future. That is stressful. I would be stressed out myself. I mean, who wouldn't be, right? So we need to deal with that. We need to lower their anxiety. Otherwise, they will get into exam absolutely not prepared mentally, and the results might be bad. Well, very often they don't know how to measure time successfully, and they don't know if they have enough time, if they don't. So we need probably to deal with that before the exam, to teach them how to manage their time. Very high expectations. These comes mostly from parents, I should say, or schools, because children themselves do not have expectation. Is something very social. It's socially desirable, right? It doesn't come as an instinct to people. Babies do not have any expectations. They love you unconditionally. They think you're the best, right? Whereas when we grow, we have this idea of society expecting certain things, parents, friends, peers. So there is so much pressure. And this pressure leads to stress. And internal expectation, they come from external kind of situations. And we need to keep this in mind. Everything you say to students that could lead to something they will, kind of internalize, and they will have it, and they will live with that. Lack of support system. If you've noticed that this is the reason for your students, again, we might need to deal with that. This lack of support from parents who want only best results. If you notice that this is happening, you might need to talk to parents or sort of encourage your students as much as possible. Many students have no idea what are their strong sides and weak sides. They're just unaware of this. I would say that for Russian students and Russian well, kids, teenagers in general, it's quite difficult to reflect. We're not very reflexive, no one teaches us how to do that. So if you ask students what they're good at, what they're bad at, they have no idea often. They don't even, often they don't even know what they like and dislike. So this sort of thinking, meta thinking, we should probably teach this somehow as well. So, uh, well, planning time, being unaware of there again, what they can and cannot do, this is what I've noticed. Then, what to do? If we want to be, best in dealing with stress, we need to work with parents. And as I said, many things come from parents, many expectations most expectations, honestly, come from parents. And the best thing is somehow to discuss this and make parents be your friends rather than your enemies, and help, get students get help through parents as well. So they shouldn't be worrying about mistakes that much, because sometimes it's not the counting of mistakes, it's the achievement, overall achievement. And these are different things. Uh, if we talk about young learners, for example, very often parents tell them, because they're young, they can't choose what to do, what activities to do, maybe it's not, well, I mean, it's not maybe, but it's not good. Uh, we need to develop um, autonomous thinking and, kind of sort of maturity in young learners as well. We should ask them more often, what would you like to do? Why would you like to do this or not? Would you like to play this? Why? Why not? What happens now, I do not teach young learners, but I do teach middle school children, teenagers, and university students. Very often when I ask my high school um, children, teenagers, what they like, what they don't like, what they care about, what are their interests. They often can't tell me. They don't know. They don't think much about themselves. They are not aware. They know that they need to be prepared for exams because someone told them they have to. The rest, uh, so I don't know if you've come across this, but that's from my experience with some of my groups. So, and we need to develop creativity. We need to, well, mostly, so my general idea here, collaborate with parents as well, as possible, as much as possible, okay? If we talk about exam in particular, we need to, sorry, some message. Okay, if we talk about exam, like imagine we're now not at the preparation stage, but rather the exam stage. Maybe it's a good idea to think about the following things. If the child had enough sleep, enough rest, enough food, and if they are physically prepared, and I will explain later why this is so important, and also what sort of psychological set or attitude they have when they go into exam. So when we talk about the levels of stress or levels of let's say manifestation of stress, there are 4 of them. So we have physical level, psychological level, cognitive, and behavioral. And this is what I mentioned earlier when I said that sometimes we see through behavior that our students are stressed. Sometimes we don't see that because this is some other level. So here I tried to mark with colors and first letters for you to see how stress might be showing itself. So physical symptoms would be something like fatigue or sweating or some rashes or aches. So when you see that suddenly in the middle of the lesson your students get very tired or very kind of they lose track of things, maybe this is sort of stress they are dealing with. Of course it could be simple fatigue and being tired, but it could be symptom of stress. Psychological examples would be, being irritable or suddenly angry, or being very moody. So happy now, unhappy next moment. So changes of the mood. Again, it's just one of many things. Feeling bad about oneself, I'm stupid, I'm useless, and all of this. I've seen such students who would be saying, I don't know anything, I'm stupid, just that's me. And if you notice this, we need to deal with that. Maybe together with parents, maybe on our own, but we need to keep that in mind. Cognitive, this is everything about our cognitive functioning of memory, intelligence, attention, low attention span, or I don't know, bad memorizing, and so on. That's cognitive. And behavioral, of course, this is classical. Lots of misbehavior that happens in class. This is the result of students getting stressed, and not simply because they are stupid, as I mentioned earlier, because that's a stereotype, or not because they're not interested. Or maybe they just bad at controlling their emotions. But again, this could be connected with stress in a way. Well, what else do I have to say? If we talk about dealing with stress, uh, like very often, if you tell someone, I'm worried, I'm anxious, I'm stressed, people say, oh, don't be, like, relax, right? Don't stress out. Good, but it's not helping, right? It's not helping us at all. And if you tell your students, you shouldn't be stressed, don't worry about your exam, yeah, but I mean, they still will be, right? It's the same as with public speaking. I don't know if you've ever performed publicly. If someone tells you, oh, don't worry, just relax, that's not difficult, don't worry. Uh, will you not worry? Of course you will. So there should be some techniques, something more, about doing something rather than telling them not to be stressed. So here are certain ideas that I have here. Well, all of these are just, symbolic pictures. You can understand them differently, but I'll tell you what I mean by them. So it's a good idea if we look at the grading paper. It could be, different here points, but what I meant is that we need to grade our students often, and if we talk about exams, they should know the grading system. They should know how they can get better mark and how, like, what they need to do to improve them. So very often we just grade, but we don't give them the criteria. So, okay, this is satisfactory, this is excellent. Why is that? Give them criteria so they know why actually they got that. This is reflections. This is how they can control themselves, and develop independent learning ability or skills. Uh, about the calendar is, well, I meant a calendar here, and I meant more or less long-term planning. Students normally have problems with that. It's difficult to plan long term because they don't know, well, they lose track of time. So in our class, we have this calendar, which we mark important dates. So if we need to have a mock exam, we put it on the calendar. If we have a real one, we put it there. We also put some other important events there. So it gives them the idea of time. With young learners, you actually teach them, and this is a good skill that you teach them. With teenagers, you just help them to control themselves. They know what calendar is, definitely, but they simply very often ignore that. As for stopwatch, this is short-term planning. This is planning for the next day, for tomorrow, short-term, like 1 week maybe. Again, this is not the same as long-term, right? Well, also, I'm a big fan of lists, lists with ticking the boxes. I've done this, I've done that. Many foreign books have this, I mean, course books. I know that many Russian teachers ignore that because they don't see the point. Why should we tick? Well, because this is the feedback the students give on their own achievement. And you better spend time on that. Ask them, okay, did you do that? Can you put a tick? Are you happy with what you've done? They can add some smiley faces near this to show, yeah, I've worked on this topic, I've learned the words, uh, and you know that there's been research, and it proves that if you put a tick in a box, it's actually physiologically satisfying. And this satisfaction is actually very pleasing. So if you put a tick because you've done it, it makes you, sort of feel happy and satisfied. This is a good feeling. Ball, this is more of a symbol of some action activities. Don't forget to be physical and kinesthetic in your class. And I'm not talking about young learners now. We all play and run and sit and jump with them. But how often do your teenagers do this? How often they do the running dictation, or how often do they walk around the class? Again, there have been some research that show that when students stand and move, they acquire information better. So if you have texts set around the room, so they need to move around physically, stand and read, it's often more, sort of, well, interesting for them, but it's also more effective. You see, so make them move more. With adults, the same actually. Well, as for Apple, actually I meant food. I meant simply food. Feed your students. I don't know if you work at school whether it's allowed or not. I work at after school, extracurricular English classes, and very often students come and they are just they look lost and powerless and so tired they have no energy. I simply need to feed them. I give them, I don't know, a cookie. We make tea. We drink tea during the class. I bring fruit. I cut apples. I feed them because everyone needs nutrition, and we know that our students work hard. And for scissors is more a symbol of, let's say, some creative activity, collages or anything. So think about creativity. Don't forget that any exam is a lot based on creative skills and on ability to deal with, sudden and unexpected situations. And this is creativity. This is creativity. Okay, now I will go through some random ideas. It looks like my presentation is way too big for this 1 hour. I'm sorry for that. Um, but as I understand, you will get the material so you can look at it carefully at home. So just now, ideas that you might be using. So anxiety scale, what you can do, and I I'm trying to implement this into my classroom, but I know that some students or some teachers, sorry, are using this. So they have these faces like this or some others. And when students come to class, teacher asks them to choose a face that would show their emotion. And they kind of, it's like a statement, today I'm like this. And they say that today I'm upset. And they come with this into class, and you think, okay, fine, you're upset. You respect this, and then you find out how to deal with that. But when they realize this and you realize that, this is more of a dialogue already, emotional dialogue. And you can ask at the end of the lesson, oh, wow, guys, how do you feel now? Can you pick up a smiley face? How, like, hopefully they will choose a happy, calm, and relaxed face rather than the angry, stressed out one. Okay, so there was some, yeah, okay, so there is an idea about nervous system. Yes, nervous system reacts differently, of course, but um, well, I think it doesn't contradict with what I'm saying. It's true, everyone reacts differently, but there are some common things that people would definitely like most commonly demonstrate in terms of stress, for example. As for anxiety, mm, looking at anxiety and what anxiety is and how, like, what emotions your students feel, this is a part of a big topic of social emotional learning. I'm not going to talk about it for a long time. It's just an idea that I would like to share. That social emotional learning is learning through, being able to deal with emotions, deal with one's behavior, to show empathy, to build healthy relationship. And social emotional learning, actually, what is interesting, a lot of learning is actually based on emotional level and social emotional system rather than simply cognitive. And that's why we need to deal with lots of emotions of our students and their emotional level in general. How to do that? One thing is make them reflect on their emotions when they come to class, for example. That's one thing, right? You might be thinking of some other ideas. Generally, this social emotional learning includes many, many things. And again, this is a separate topic for a separate seminar, but I wanted to share this because you can have a look at this topic deeper and find out what appeals to you. For example, these blocks, these are the classical 5 areas of social emotional learning. And if you work on them, you will actually get a lot from your students. For example, if we talk about social awareness here, it's about empathy, developing empathy through, certain exercises. It's about understanding each other, following social norms in class. So it's actually, if you uh, kind of implement some social emotional learning techniques into your classroom, this will help you on many, many different levels. Um, what are these techniques? Again, I'm not specifically talking about them today um, because I think it's just a separate topic, but I hope you might be interested and you might go and read something more on this. Okay. Um, uh, Another idea which you've probably heard about, and it's closely connected actually with the previous one. This is an idea of a mindset, what we have in our mind, right? So mindset, you remember I talked at the beginning about stereotypes, and very often we think about, intelligence or memory or skills as something like fixed and stable. The idea of a growth mindset, it was developed by Carol Dweck, lovely, like very nice theory, which suggests that all our mindsets are, it's not, something fixed. This is more of a growing and moving and developing thing. And so this was called a growth mindset. So if we try to encourage growth mindsets in our students, that intelligence could be developed, memory could be developed, behavior could be improved, stress could be dealt with. This is something more like we teach them how to do that, and then they will do it themselves. What my idea here is that students with growth mindsets and not like this, uh, they will be helping you with your teaching. So it's not all your job to motivate them. They'll be motivating themselves because they will know what they like, how they feel about things, how they deal with stuff. They will know themselves better and they will be helping you. So it's not your only and yours only job to motivate and make them interested. They will be actually doing it themselves, which I think is pretty good because they're helping you. Okay, here are some random ideas that I've collected. I have some doubts about this one, but I've still decided to put it here. So it's about meditation. So there was a story in, well, last summer there was a story, probably you remember, when a group of teenagers, football players, got stuck in a cave and they stayed there for 10 days. And when they couldn't get out because of the water level, that. So what was happening there is that they were a group of kids and one teacher, coach. And when divers found the group of people, this group of people, they actually, what they saw, no panic, no stress, children meditating. And for 10 days, with very little oxygen and food and clean water, they were meditating. So the coach taught them how to meditate, which I think is a very beautiful story. How it relates to us. Well, I know that schools now, for example, in America, use meditation in class. So we will not watch a video. I think we don't have enough time, but you can find online videos with meditation instead of detention, so replacing detention with meditation instead of sending kids to this detention room where they need to do write lines or do extracurricular homework, they meditate. I've never tried this. I'm slowly moving towards that idea to try this with my students, but probably you need to be practicing meditation yourself to be able to do this. That's just an idea. Well, what else? Some other idea. Body language before. Sorry. Show just a second. Get back, you mean? Replacing detention with meditation. Yeah, so that's a YouTube video. It's 2 minutes video. We'll, if you don't mind, we'll just skip it. Honestly, I've prepared too much for 1 hour, but wanted to share as much as possible. Well, so this lady, her name is Amy Cuddy. She's a very good TED speaker, TEDster, so-called. And what she suggests, she's talking about body language and postures. So if you've ever noticed that your students have trouble, presenting themselves and talking, what she suggests, it doesn't matter like if it's a public talk actually or it's any speaking. She suggests that the posture can help your student to relax. And this is actually absolutely true. I've done this in class. I've done this on the conferences with many people when I asked people to present or to talk in a certain position and posture, whether it could be lower pose, a very closed one with crossed legs and your body very closed, or the open one, sort of a winner pose or high power pose. What happens? The high power pose, it helps to relax. It helps to increase, kind of to boost energy. And actually the level of adrenaline rises. So before the presentation or before the talk or before, you know, important, even exam, what your students can do, they can stand in the corridor, their legs far apart, put their hands on the hips, and this is stay in this for a couple of seconds. Think, that you are good, that you're strong. Back straight, breathe in, breathe out. It helps. You'll be surprised. It helps. It's like Superman pose or something. It's I don't know. It works on all levels, emotional and physiological, and it helps students do feel more confident. So try it and let me know later how it works. Time management, I mentioned it earlier. Just spend enough time on time management. Don't try to do everything in one go, right? We have very big tasks. Any exam is a huge task. Get it cut into pieces. So don't eat this huge elephant in one go, right? We never do that in real life. So cut it, plan it wisely in terms of, well, long-term goals, short-term goals, what they need to do, and so on, and have them in a calendar, have it planned. This is probably you know about it. This is about motivation, optimum of motivation. So this one is just a reminder. Motivation is quite a tricky thing, right? However, for the exams, especially, or for any situation with stress, low motivation as well as very high motivation, both are bad. Very high motivation, you know, when you really want to be good and you want to succeed, with super high motivation often leads to mistakes. And it's actually, again, there's been research saying that the level of mistake rises if the motivation is too high. So we need to kind of get the balanced middle kind of level of motivation for our students. Otherwise, they will not be able to control the level of mistakes. How can they do that? Well, again, with certain, I don't know, breathing, preparing mentally techniques, or just discussing it with all the students, and so on. So, but just keep in mind. Okay, we will, I think, skip this one. It's not that important. This one, it's about zone of proximal development, Vygotsky. I'm sure you've heard about him. So this one is just to remind you again that students should be challenged, and students should be motivated all the time with novelty, with something interesting. But again, don't forget, but it's not on your job to motivate them. Teach them how what they kind of help them to find out what they like, what they don't like, what they have difficulties with, and then they will be motivating themselves, and then you'll be just scaffolding, you'll be helping them, right? Again, just a quick reminder, nothing, I'm sure nothing new here. And finally, some methods. I think I have about 5-6 minutes. We started. Okay, we started, yeah, so about 5-6 minutes more. Now, about cognitive level of preparation. So we talked about stress, we talked about motivation a little bit, stress, dealing with stress techniques. What can we do now? I suggest some ideas on memory, basically. This is mostly about memory, so cognitive level. Remember that with stress, with certain level of stress, cognitive level very often gets, imbalanced or distracted. So how can we help our students with some additional methods? Remember you were drawing something at the beginning. Can you look at your papers again, please? Get them out, look at the pictures. I know it's been very little time since the beginning, less than an hour actually, so probably you remember all the words. Can you just write the number of words out of 6 that you remember looking at the picture? Now the whole idea is not that you just remember the word. You might remember them because you're experienced teachers. You might remember them just without any pictures. But the idea, how well your pictures can help you to remember the words. So if you could just share in the chat room how many words you remember. All 6, okay, I'm not surprised. I would be surprised, yeah, maybe if you didn't. Good. I hope it comes from the picture, not just remembering the words. Again, I haven't seen your pictures. I'm sure they're great. Okay, we have all 6 here. Good, good. So what I do with my students, how I do that. Have a look. So these were the words. We had greenhouse effects, to chop down trees, acid rain, obstinate, suspicious, open-minded. Words taken from random topics. What I do, I ask my students, when we learn the words and I know that they know them, what I want them to do is to kind of, I wanted to find exercise to revise and recall words from time to time. So I ask them to do what actually you did. So these are real pictures from my students. These are 8th, 9th form students. So you see the picture of greenhouse effect, chop down trees, acid rain. So what happens, I collect their pictures and I give them back in a week, in a month, I don't know, in a couple of weeks, it's up to you. And you see how well they remember. Usually it helps a lot, and it's not a random picture, and it's not a picture you've chosen. This is the picture they created. It creates certain, neurological links in your brain to remember. And these are quite easy, actually, to illustrate, right? Because, I mean, these are very real things. When we talk about something less real and material, like obstinate, suspicious, open-minded, look at this. I mean, I think this is amazing because this guy in the middle, he's really suspicious. And again, this girl is not good at drawing or anything. She doesn't go to art school or something. But you see, I would definitely say this guy is suspicious. And if your students are, if you have nice group dynamics and they're good friends and so on, what you can do, you can give these pictures not to the same student, but to another one. And then they try to guess pictures of each other. And I usually cut these cards out so they don't remember the position of cards on the paper. They simply see one card and then I give it and they try to guess. It's a good idea to write answers maybe at the back or have answers somewhere. What happens if you don't know the word? They give synonyms. So this is a way to deal, with actually word synonyms, and it's even better. So if they don't know the word, they don't remember the word obstinate, but they probably remember stubborn, right? So this is how I recall words. This was for FC level. So this is called pictogram method, and I like it. I use it. The youngest I was using it was 10 years old. Does everyone create his picture? Do they work together? Yes, everyone creates their own picture. That's the point, because we want everyone to think about it. So you said, what I do, I give words, like in a way I opened them or presented them to you. I set a time, let's say 5-6 minutes. You need to set time, otherwise they will be drawing the whole lesson. And you need to, again, calm them down. No one cares about the quality of their drawings, really. No one cares. Just draw something that will help you to remember the word. So they're drawing associations. Actually, it's very good thinking activity because it helps to develop creativity. So another technique, this is also like mnemonics technique based on rhyming or connection. So, and actually that comes from my students. They said that the word touchy is associated with Thatcher, Margaret Thatcher. So this is how we learned it. So Margaret Thatcher was touchy. Okay. This gorilla was very garrulous, and the general was very generous. The association came from my students. I asked them, what does the word remind you of? Any associations? And these associations are based on the rhyming or similar sounds. then I find the picture and I show the picture, and this is how we recall words. It works with different levels. And again, the picture doesn't show the word exactly. It gives you association. So there is like several steps, mental steps that they need to make to get to the word, which I think is good. And we're slowly finishing. Yeah, I think there is like 1 or 2 slides left. Acrostics, I'm sure you've heard of acrostics. This is mnemonics based on using the first letter of every word to create something or to remember something. Because it's mnemonics, it's mostly for memorizing things. And here there is a sentence which every first letter means name of the planet. If you forget what the order of planets is, you can use this. So acrostics, I'm sure you've seen those on the internet. Again, with younger learners, you can use the ready-made ones, or the ones you've created. With teenagers, older students, you can ask them to create something. Something like this. We had the topic of war, and I wanted them to, there was a list of words that they need to remember, and I asked them to use acrostics to, create anti-war slogan or something. Anti-war, again, FC level. So they will worship, adore, respect the word war. All these words had to be learned. Again, this could be new words, or you can use acrostics to recall words you've covered already. It's just one of the ideas. And I hope you followed my maybe not very good logic here, but I try to kind of show that these stereotypes are stereotypes and they need to be overcome. So many things could be developed and many things should be developed, and then if you deal with these, your students might be helping you in teaching. So you're not doing the whole job yourself. That was my point. I hope it was more or less logical here. And as for recommendations on psychological reading, these are like the ones I like. There are many of those, and I mentioned growth mindset earlier, and emotional learning, social emotional learning earlier as well. And this is more on psychology. So Sarah Mercer is one of the authors who works a lot on psychological topics for teachers. Memory activities here, lots of things, including ones I mentioned in a way. So just keep an open mind to psychology. It's not that boring. It's not only about Freud and all that stuff. So there are many useful things, I guess. And this is my my contacts. If you wish to ask me something or get in touch, you're welcome to share your experience of using any of things I've mentioned. I would be happy to find out how it worked, like pictograms, how you find them. I think it's a very interesting thing to do. Thank you for being here. Sorry, it's always a rush with me. I can never slow down. So lots of information. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer. Useful tips. Thank you very much. Yeah, lots of thank you from you. I'm pleased that it was useful. Probably something was very usual and obvious, but wow, many things. Thank you. Thank you too. Thank you for being. We have a very wide and big audience today from many places. This is always good. So please share your thoughts later if you wish. You can share ideas that how you teach your students, how you deal with stress, how you work with memory, and how you help them memorize things. Yes, yeah, I think there is always something new. Maybe I talked about usual stuff, maybe from a little bit different perspective. So anyway, I hope you will be able to use some of those, okay? And I hope, yeah, some practical tips. I gave you some practical tips. Okay, so do we have any questions? Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, tomorrow webinar will be basically the same. Yeah. Actually, thank you. You've been a great audience, and probably I know where I should, well, maybe there shouldn't be that many slides, and a couple of slides I can get rid of those. But yeah, basically that's going to be the same audience, sorry, the same presentation tomorrow. Yes, I think we can share the presentation. Definitely, we can share it with you. Yeah, if you've been here today, you don't need to be there tomorrow unless you want to do the same twice. But I don't think you need to do that. Yeah. If you have any questions, you can join us tomorrow and ask them, or you can ask me, you know, through email or Instagram. Okay. So any other questions? Yeah, you probably should think about it. I know there's been many things. As I said, I tend to overdo a little bit, but I always think that better more than, than less. So yeah. Thank you. Oh, so some person is saying you have many questions. I would love to hear your questions, actually. I would love to, yeah, that would be interesting. So questions are very welcome. Работаю ли я с выявлением способностей и развитием? I'm not exactly sure what you mean. Yeah, kind of. I think sort of if you're talking about diagnostics of, you know, abilities, I kind of do that with high school students. We talk about, you know, their strengths and weaknesses. I bring some psychological tests. I actually use psychological tests, not on stress only, but more like aptitude test or professional orientation test. I do this. Yeah, so we discuss whether they agree with it, whether it's something they really want to do. Yeah, positive psychology, it's interesting. It's not that I, you know, particularly use it, but I mean, maybe some elements. I'm not following one psychological, you know, school. I'm big fan of, for example, psychoanalysis and Jungian analysis. And if I find some techniques that might be borrowed or from psychotherapy, why not? Positive psychology as well. So I mean, I use different things. Psychophysiology, I do read stuff there as well because lots of things, you know, work on the neurons level and brain level, and it's interesting to know as well. С какого возраста начинаете рисовать пиктограммы? So I said that I think the youngest I've tried pictograms was a 10-year-old. The idea is if you give, pictogram can work as a picture that they create for very concrete word, like, I don't know, tree, cat, dog. If they draw something and it represents the object, it's also nice. This method works better if the word is not that, you know, it's not an object, it's more abstract. And then it's interesting how they create a picture, because then it means that they have mental connection between the word and the picture. And because of this mental connection, only, let's say, middle school, like later middle school and high school children can do that. I mean, cognitively. Younger children, they cannot do that yet because of their cognitive abilities. So with them, I would use pictogram method to draw concrete things and objects or things that are easy to be shown. More abstract things and, you know, would work better with older students. I hope I answered your question about age. Thank you. Yeah, if I make a seminar, I want to. I'm going to maybe at some point. Do you have any placement tests for young learners to assess their language abilities and cognitive skills as well? Okay, probably now not that I can think of, but I mentioned that I do not work specifically with young learners. I sometimes assist lessons, but I do not work with them specifically, so probably I cannot recommend them right now. I'm sure you can find something. With language abilities, there are lots of placement tests for young learners. I mean, even in course books, there are certain tests. Well, I mean, I've seen that. Cannot name them now, but I'm pretty sure I've seen that. As for the cognitive skills, well, there are also tests online. You know, you can actually, what you can do, you can find tests for, you know, kids, cognitive tests in Russian, and then you can use them as a model and sort of recreate them in English. Even those tests that are used for children when they enter school, you know, pictures to describe or create a story from the picture. But actually, that's what we do at Young Learners Exam, for example. So you can use that to measure their cognitive abilities as well. There are certain tests. Cannot name like exact tests now, but I'm pretty sure they exist. Probably, yeah, if you go online, try to search that. Sorry if I cannot be specific here. Not my particular area. Don't want to, you know, be random now. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Sorry if I cannot answer this now better. Okay. Okay, so if any more questions? Okay, so I guess we're done here. Thank you very much. Then we probably stop the webinar now, right? And well, have a nice day, everyone. Those who are still here, have a nice day, evening. Yeah, hope you will use some of my tips, and thank you very much for participation. So bye-bye, everyone.